Joining us now from Charlotte, North Carolina. The first 2 weeks were somber. Didn't get a win. Now we finally get a big win against a big division opponent. Coming off a win against the New Orleans Saints. Joining us, Baker Mayfield. Baker, how you doing, man?
Oh, much better than last week.
Welcome back to another episode of the Bobbled Exchange. What a week we had. Week 3 brought some interesting games. We are here at Calla in Scottsdale. Love this place. Chef Bo McMillan, Chef Peter McQuaid, two rock stars in the chef world. Chef Bo's on Food Network. Chef Peter's been under him for a bunch of years. Food they sent out, we got a ribeye, we got some lamb kofta, we got a cacio pepe, we got ricotta whipped, we got wine for both of us, nice little red, and we are feeling good about week 3 leading into week 4. Drew, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. What is this called right here?
Cacio pepe. Stands for cheese and pepper. That's it.
Simple. I like it.
Yeah.
I'm great. Had a good weekend. Kids sports, and now it's talking about the NFL. I think Sunday is something everybody looks forward to, and you never know what to expect, right? Any given Sunday is the quote that everybody talks about. We learned a lot about some teams, and other people just kind of stepped up and maintained status quo. I mean, to talk about players that are exceeding expectations, right? You look at Jalen Hurts, you look at that Eagles team of what they're doing, you look at Tua and everything that's going on down in Miami. I mean, I still don't know how he was able to play in a game when he collapsed. Apparently his back went into hyperextension. But anyways, those are the teams that are really impressing. And then there's teams like the Raiders that are 0-3, and they are the only team remaining.
Mind-blowing.
Oh my gosh. I mean, you would have thought there was so much talk and hype about going out and getting Devontae Adams, going out and getting Josh McDaniels, and going out and getting Chandler Jones, that this team was going to be so good. But in this league, you have to go win football games, and they are yet to do that. Right now, they're in every single one. They just have not put it together for an entire 60 minutes.
On paper, they look incredible. There's a couple teams that I think we're sitting there like wondering what the fuck's going on. Like, are they as bad as we think? Are we overreacting too early? Are they better than we think? Some teams, I mean, shit, Chicago's 2-1, right? I mean, like, that fucking team on paper is abysmal.
Oh,
right? And they're 2-1, right? So then you look at, like you said, Vegas, and it's like, man, on paper, this team is a Super Bowl contender, and they can't win a fucking game. They can't piss a drop in any facet of the game. They got one of the best receivers, if not the best receiver in football, and he's going for 2 catches and 40 yards or whatever it is. Like, it's mind blowing. But is it too early to panic in week 3? Are we at the point of panic? If you're 0-3, like, is this full tilt fucking emergency mode?
If you're 0-3, if you're 1-2 and you've lost 2 bad football games and snuck one out against a bad team, sometimes you start looking ahead to that schedule, right? And you're like, oh man, okay. Or you're saying, now we're using this as momentum, right? Like, just get that first win out of the way. You look at Carolina, you look at the Falcons, they are able to kind of just put that behind them. Sometimes it's just a matter of getting the ball rolling. And it's so much easier to make these corrections when you have wins, when you feel good about that, because the week just feels better. Let's be honest, right? When you're sitting there 0-3, and you're Derek Carr and you're trying to get this figured out, you're trying to find a way to win a football game, really, is what he said. You better know how to win a football game at this standpoint, because you've got to bring young guys along. Your identity is starting to get formed. Some of these teams look really good. Is it sustainable, right? You're starting to see injuries pile up with the Bills. They're going to have to, losing both safeties is really hard. You look at the Chargers. Again, a team that was dominant early on, but can they ride that wave? Can they have a level of consistency? Because they've already been dealt a lot of injuries to a lot of marquee players that they were counting on for the duration of the season.
I want to go back to some records. Indianapolis has to feel great about themselves. They're 1-1-1, and they just came off a win against the Chiefs. And by the way, I haven't seen as many protection issues around the league as I've seen there. So they've got to get that ironed out. But being 1-1-1, they're right in the fucking thick of everything in a division that is very unclear.
Well, and Jacksonville is another team you can put in there, right? They're doing. They look
really
great,
good.
right?
They look really good.
You don't just go on the road and win by 28 by happenstance. I don't care who's playing on the other side of the ball. In this league, you don't go from East Coast to West Coast and put it on a team like they did.
They're a lot better team.
Oh,
I've watched.
But leadership, right? You look at the leadership of what's in place with Doug Peterson. That was one of the teams that we highlighted. Said they'll be better. We don't know how good they're going to be. They are surprising a lot of people. Yeah. And right now, again, we can overreact because this is such a week-to-week business. Mm-hmm. But that's a team that is going to vie for a spot to win that division because that division right now is in such flux of who's going to step up where. And we saw a different Indianapolis team, which was great. A Titans team found a way to win a football game against a Raiders team that just can't right now. Yeah. So it's going to start to shake itself out a little bit, right? But injuries are going to have to be able to overcome that, right? You see that 2 major injuries, and maybe it's a product of preseason. We don't know. We've talked about it ad nauseum anyways because everybody has their own idea of what they want to do. But you lose Trey Lance to a play call on 3rd down when you try to run the quarterback, right? And then all of a sudden, you see in the Sunday night game, Jimmy G's playing. Everybody's feeling good about that. They're playing in a game that they could have and should have won. They decide to take a shot, as we're going to hear later from Kyle Shanahan, who takes ownership of it, which is great, right? Yeah. Jimmy G steps out of the back of the end zone. Not only does that play call hurt in that regard of the 2 points that are lost and help me not cover the spread, but that's a personal vendetta. It hurts Trent Williams in the process, right? Which is even more devastating along the way. And, we saw Dan tweet it out. I was actually there when Dan stepped out of the back of the end zone, which was bizarre, right? I remember it clear as day. Yes, Dan Orlovsky. We're sitting there in the Metrodome at the time and going over everything. I had the coach the quarterback on because that was the process when I was in Detroit. So I was calling the play into Dan. Everything was set in stone. And usually as a quarterback, right, and we've talked about this before, you want to try to eliminate half the field from your process of saying, I don't even have to look over here because I know I'm not going to be hot. I'm trying to eliminate half the field and say my hot issues are on this side. To my left, I don't even care, right? Yep. Much like Jimmy G had no idea what was going on. He gets pressure in his face. He towed the line a little bit better than Dan did. Dan just straight took off because all of a sudden Jared Allen splits what he thought was going to be a side completely protected. It's a 7-man protection, and truly only 5 guys come if you go back and watch Dan's clip. He just takes off. The problem is that he's run out of bounds for 10 yards lateral down the way. But now he probably is exhaling, knowing that Jimmy G. Yeah, I mean he's not alone in doing that. But
let me give you the lineman's perspective on when you're backed up on your own one. You just want to run it 3 times because there can't be a more pressure-packed situation than being backed up on your own one, calling a pass play. Calling an empty pass play, where now it's 5-man protection, and you're going to be one-on-one. Or, in their case, they called a play-action pass, which might even be more pressure-packed in fucking really putting the offensive lineman in a sweaty, uncomfortable position. Because now, in their minds, from the minute you start playing football and you run a play-action pass, they're telling you to be aggressive. Go get on the guy, right? And what are they going to be doing on defense? They're probably moving. They're going to be slanting front, they're going to be running a blitz, they're going to be running something, right? So now you go jump a guy and you go and get on him, and if you miss, you're holding on for dear life. And then guess what happens? You get a holding call, and it's a fucking safety. Or you let him go, and it's a sack, or he runs out the back of the end zone, it's a safety, right? It's just a shitty situation.
Well, and even more so than that, right? The play call of him turning his back to the defense, almost like an outside zone fake and booting around, the margin of error just increases immensely, because if it's one thing, if it's a play action, a straight drop back play action, and then you can see it, when you have to turn your back and you lose sight of everything for that long, and time and space and everything, you know what? And it's just so hard. But then, as we heard, he was trying to take a shot, trying to get too creative in an instance where you're just trying to get enough room for your punter to be able to do it. You can use the hard count. You can use a lot of different things to try and back them up. That was not the answer by any means.
Interesting, because there's 2 trains of thoughts in that. You either just try and get out to the 5 and give your full 15 so you can get the punt off, or a lot of coaches do this. They do try and take that shot and go from the 1 to the 50 real quick, right?
Flip the field, get a penalty, whatever it
is, right? Yeah. But it puts a lot of onus on your offensive line to hold the fuck up. It's a shitty deal. LA with the Chargers, right? Herbert, right? He's got a crazy situation, and it's all a pain management thing. Like, he probably can't get much worse. He's already got some cartilage stuff in his ribs, this, that, and the other. He went out and played yesterday. Was it a detriment to his team? Was he the same Justin Herbert? Can you get the same out of him when he's 70%, 60%, whatever it may be? Or do you try and protect him and let him heal up and give you the final 10 games?
Yeah, I mean, there's two trains of thought, right? Like, you want to be able to put the onus on the player, but there's got to be clear communication between the head coach and that player to be able to do it, right? You've got to be able to trust that player, and usually veteran players know what they need to do to be able to play. These younger guys that are trying to get it figured out, sometimes they make the right decision, and sometimes they make the wrong decision. But you have to be able to look back and see that, right? If you went back and asked Baker last year when he tore his labrum, he probably would say, I should have sat out. But your mental capacity is saying, I can't let everybody else in the locker room down around me.
As a competitor.
For sure. But,
even in your own mind.
Yeah, but then there's the guys that are on the team that realize, hey, we've got to be able to play in our best football come December, right? There's other guys that hopefully contribute. You would like to see a head coach take it out of some of these younger players' hands and just say, no, that's not going to be the case. And sometimes as the leader of a franchise, as the head coach, you've got to make those tough decisions and say, you know what? We're not going to let you re-injure your ankle, Trent Williams. Obviously, Rashawn Slater's different. He tore his bicep. He's done. But these kind of soft tissue injuries or hamstrings or calves or whatever they are you better off to let them heal one extra week? They made that decision with George Kittle, right? He got all the way up to game time with his groin. He was effective last night. He looked like the George Kittle that can go out there and help them win football games. Yeah. When you become a detriment to your team, that's when you need to take an honest assessment. And maybe they do need to rest some of these guys, right? I put that on the head coach. And there are certain instances, again, if it's a shoulder, if it's something that's structural, that's like, I've just got to deal with it, right? Dalvin Cook hurt his shoulder. He's going to be out for a period of time perhaps, but he's going to wear a harness. That's different versus a guy like Justin Herbert that you sit there and you say, okay, would an extra week of healing help him out? A similar instance happened when I was in Detroit with Matthew Stafford, right? We were abysmal the year before he got there. We were 0-16. He plays in that infamous clip that everybody's seen on NFL films where he gets absolutely planted at the end of the game against Cleveland, right?
Yeah.
He is trying to finish the game and his shoulder's out. He's like, no, I can play. I mean, you see what he wants to do, right? We had one primetime game that year. It was that next week, 4 days later, against the Green Bay Packers on Thanksgiving, the only time. And it meant everything in the world for him to play in that game. It meant everything in the world for Jim Schwartz to let him play in the game. They were on the same page, right? Yeah. He went out there and he played and he did the best he could. There are certain instances where you say, okay, I trust this guy to be able to do it, but it's few and far between. It went all the way up to game time, too, of sometimes you have to take it out of players' hands.
Yeah, no, I mean, I see both sides of it. I really do, because a 60% Justin Herbert's probably better than most backups in this league. He's supremely fucking talented, right?
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
But if he can't throw it, and he can't move, and he can't twist and rotate, because that's literally all you're doing as a quarterback, right? It's all through that rib area. Now it becomes a detriment. And then not to mention, you don't want this to drag on all year long. You don't want this to be just a nagging thing, because those nagging injuries, I've had them. I mean, an AC joint sprain where I'm getting, an injection every week. I mean, those things just nag. You can't practice. You can't even put your clothes on without help, right? So little injuries like that are just nagging. Now, granted, they can get you ready to roll on game day. They can always get you ready with whatever injection or whatever. But is it almost doing more harm in the long run? But then again, I also see where coaches kind of see, 50% or 60% of him's better than what we got.
You got to win, right? Coaches have to win in this league.
Yeah.
It is all about results.
There's no time.
And they are in a position of power to make those decisions. They're extremely difficult. But I will say this, too, to end this thought. You have to be able to discern, right? It's one thing if you get hurt in the game, right? Your adrenaline, all this stuff, you're just going on and you finish it out and you ride that wave out, right? To then go back the next week and have that same injury after everything's set in, those are two different situations you find yourself in. Yeah. Finishing a game with some type of injury, I mean, I'm sure you've done that. I know I've done that. It's one thing. But then when you wake up the next day and you can barely walk or you can barely rotate or twist or you go to throw a football, that's when you need to take an honest assessment and an evaluation of what's going on and have all of those things.
Because it can't be good.
No.
It can't be good.
No, not at all. But then another responsibility of these coaches, right? When do you take that player out of the game? When do you take a guy out of the game, not only necessarily because of injury, or when you're just getting absolutely smoked? Somebody is putting it on you, and they're hanging some huge number, right? Some people believe, no, like, we're going to sit there, we're going to ride this out. Other people like, well, no, this was a point of contention again with Justin Herbert. He wanted to be out there to finish his games. If I'm Brandon Staley, as soon as that game is anywhere out of reach for us,
He's out.
Out. Done. I don't care what it is. I don't care what it looks like.
Yeah.
You are coming out of this game because you are too vital for our success as we move forward.
That's always the hardest thing, I think, as head coaches, but that's their job. That's why they get paid the big bucks.
Yeah, well, I got a funny story about that. So,
Okay.
when I was, I used to go to the Manning Passing Academy back in the day, which is an unbelievable event for quarterbacks, and you're around all of these, obviously the Manning family, but you're around all these other college quarterbacks, NFL quarterbacks that come back. They do such a tremendous job of that. When I was down there, I was around Bubby Brister, who is one of the biggest characters ever, being a Pittsburgh guy. You
know all about him. Yep.
A Southern guy in Pittsburgh that probably stuck out like a sore thumb, but he is absolutely hilarious. So we were talking about this. This was early on in my career when I was in Detroit and I was a backup, and I was talking about a situation that I was in where I had to go in and play, and it was really tough. Didn't have a lot of success, didn't play well, and he was like, oh yeah, man, there was this one time, 1991, when they told him to go in and play, and he was like, I don't mop up for nobody. That was his exact quote. He told Chuck Noll that when he was the head coach, after everything he had accomplished, right? It takes a lot of balls to sit there, and a coach comes and tells you to go in and says, I'm not going in for Neil O'Donnell. That guy's a bum. I'm not going to go and clean his mess after you're getting spanked. I respect him a lot for doing that. I just know I would have been like, all right, coach, I'm going in.
Yeah. There becomes a point, right, like as a player where if you're a backup, there has to be a certain party that has to be a company man, right? And the guys that aren't usually don't stick around very long, which takes a lot of balls on his part to do that, but God bless him. I mean, that's an incredible story. It's an incredible move to just be like, go fuck yourself. I ain't going in. Hey, let him finish the fucking game. You went with him, he stunk, he can finish it.
Well, then, here's the funny part. The next week he starts, and he wins the final 2 games of the season. That's what he said. He was like, you know what? I stood my ground. I asserted myself. And then I went out there and I did what I had to do and won football games.
I love that. All right, so let's move on to the backup plan, huh? Yeah, so the injury bug is starting to hit the NFL, right? I mean, this is the point in time where it starts to hit. We saw some big injuries this week. We saw Trent Williams. Let's start with him. I've talked about him at length numerous times to everybody and anybody that'll listen. He's the best fucking offensive lineman I've watched. Incredible left tackle. He goes, literally, ironically, on the play that Jimmy G steps out the back of the end zone. His center guard are working a play action that side. They throw a guy. The guy falls on the side of his ankle, gets clipped pretty good. He's, I think, got a high ankle sprain. There's been no reports yet about whether it was a break or not, but is there a tougher spot to be in to be the backup to go in and replace maybe the greatest fucking player at that position?
Legend, right?
An absolute legend at that position. You got to go in and you're expected to do the same thing. Colton McKivitz goes in for him yesterday. Performs admirably, gets him out of the game. They really had a chance, and they had every opportunity to capitalize and win that game. They just did not, and they will. That team is a good team, and they will win games moving forward. But he's going to be asked to do a lot moving forward. Can you talk about how important and how tough of a position that kid is in moving forward?
Well, again, I think the scheme is going to help him, right? Mm-hmm. Being able to get the zone running scheme, the outside zone, the inside zone, moving the pocket, all those things that they do. Mm-hmm. Now, if he's smart, the first question he's going to get is, hey, how can you be a replacement for Trent Williams? And his response should be, I can't be a replacement for Trent Williams.
But I'm going to do everything I can.
I'm going to be myself and do what I can. Yep. And if he does that right, he's going to be able to be successful. They know that he's the case. Coaches know that. They understand how to game plan and what they do. You have to think about things differently when you lose an elite best of the best at their position type of guy. Mm-hmm. You know, but they're not a straight drop back team anyways, right? There's not a ton of this thing. They can find ways to do that. Jimmy will get more comfortable. They'll find continuity. They're trying to do more with Debo out of the backfield. They're trying to move him around, do all this stuff. They'll be just fine. I would let that man get as healthy as he can be. high ankle sprains sometimes take time, especially when there's a lot of weight being put on those ankles.
Yeah.
So, in saying that, for him to be who he needs to be, I'm giving him as much time as he needs.
Perfect. Let's move into your expertise. Mac Jones. I mean, you saw him getting carried off like his fucking leg needed to be amputated.
I mean,
Right?
yeah.
He's getting carried off like Byron Leftwich was getting carried down the field by his Marshall Oil lineman back in the day, which he did have a break, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
Mac Jones reported does not have a break, just a severe ankle sprain.
We've got one rule in the Stanton household. You're not allowed to lay on the field, and you're not able, well, I guess it's 2 rules. We've got 2 rules in the Stanton house. You are not allowed to lay on the field during sports, and number 2, nobody's going to carry you off of the field unless you need a stretcher to get off the field. Did you see what Trent Williams did? They brought the cart out for him, and he was like, no, I'm out of here. I'm walking off on my own power, right? There's this sense of pride. Versus the photos, they are what they are. It's unfortunate, right?
Yep.
He looked like he was in labor.
Yep.
The way that he was crying off the field. And I'm sure it's excruciating pain. This is a bad sign. Because now this is 2 weeks of going to have to get pictures taken between his back and his ankle and all. This offense we knew was going to struggle for sure throughout the course of the year. They're going to try and run the ball. They're going to try and do this. You didn't even know who the offensive coordinator was part of the year. Now you don't know who your quarterback's going to be.
And,
right?
I mean, Brian Hoyer.
Yeah, I know him real well. College teammate of mine. Awesome guy. Complete veteran. Depending on how long this injury is, though, starting 4 games with Brian Hoyer when you're trying to stay afloat in a very tough division. This has become one of the best divisions in football now, right? It's going to be hard because the Jets are no longer a pushover. They're not a guaranteed win, right?
Yeah.
You look at what the Bills are going to do, and you look at what the Dolphins are going to do.
Yeah.
You need to try and stay somewhat close to what's going on. Do they go out and get Cam Newton? I don't think so. He hasn't been there. This is a completely different offense. This isn't Josh McDaniels anymore. The verb has changed. They've talked about all that. You've got to ride out with Brian Hoyer, and then if things start going south, you throw in the Bailey Zapp that they drafted, the kid that's thrown for a bunch of yards, that's got a whole bunch of charisma.
Yep.
But it's not good. It wasn't great to begin with.
Situation.
I mean, Mac Jones threw 3 picks anyways in that game, right?
But I will say I was very encouraged by what I saw with their run game. They did not stay with what they said what they were going to do this year and go to that run game the Shanahan style. They went back to...
They couldn't. They didn't know how to teach it.
They didn't know how to teach it. They didn't know what they were doing. So what did they do? They went back to what they know. They went back to the gap schemes yesterday. They hit the one-back powers. They hit the downhill duos. They hit the draws. They hit the wham. They hit everything you're synonymous with seeing from a Brady offense of years past, right? And they went back to that, and it was encouraging. Now Mac threw some picks. Now you don't have a quarterback. They might be fucked. All right, moving on. Rashawn Slater. We talked about this a little bit. Left tackle. Other than quarterback, maybe. I mean, the most important position on the offense.
Especially an elite one like him, right?
Yeah.
Like you are protected. You draft Justin Herbert. Next year, you draft Rashawn Slater. You're good on offense of those cornerstones, and you can do all these other things. But losing him for the year to a bicep,
Tough.
I mean, how you can't play tackle as a bicep?
No, he's done. I mean, he's going to have to get surgery. It's going to be at least a 4-month, maybe more, longer injury. And anytime you do that, it's tough. But he's a top 100 player in football. He's a top 5 tackle in football, right? And, you know, you went from feeling really, really good as a quarterback out there with the Chargers to now being like, oh, shit, what do we got going on here? Are we going to have to chip help now? Are we going to have to change a lot of our game plan? You can't just sit there and be like, oh, okay, let's just turn the line right every time and put him one-on-one. You can't do that anymore. You got Storm Norton, who went in for him yesterday. Will they make a move to go get a veteran? Who knows? Storm Norton was he's been basically a career backup, done some practice squads. Not to say that he can't go in and do an admirable job, but it's a far cry from Rashawn Slater.
And the talent pool, right? You don't just go pick somebody up off the street. You don't go find a left tackle. If anybody can piss a drop right now, they're
on a team.
They're on a team, right?
Yeah.
So, in saying that, right, you have your identity that's starting to get formed within your team.
Yep.
You look at the Chicago Bears, and you talked about it earlier. They're 2-1 right now. They got to be feeling so good about that situation, right? Because they are able to run the football.
Yep.
Running the football, that is their identity. That's the black and blue division as it's known.
Yep.
Being able to do that. David Montgomery goes down early in the game with an ankle injury. You look at Khalil Herbert, comes in, 6th-round pick from Virginia Tech, has a monster day, leads the NFL in rushing with 20 carries, 157 yards, right? This is a guy that's just waiting for an opportunity is what it seems like. He was just waiting, and he took that. He ran with that. The problem is there's no pass game to help him out.
Zero. I mean, I've watched that game in depth yesterday. Justin Fields, I think, had maybe, 70 yards passing. Like, he's not going to sit back there and complete passes. They are relying on him to go back, complete a couple dink and dunks, hopefully get some scramble yards and get you 40, 50 yards in a scramble game and run for 120, 130 like they've done the last couple of weeks. And then play good defense and hopefully have a chance. Like, that's kind of the method they're rolling with right now. And I will say this. They went old school with their run game yesterday.
I was going to ask you, is this sustainable? Like, can you line up if you have enough mentality up front of saying we are running the football, we do not care? Is that sustainable in the NFL? Because they have to be, right? That's their MO at this point.
I think you have to have a quarterback that is good enough that can complete stuff off the play action with the run game, right? I think Garoppolo in San Fran is the perfect example of that. He's good enough. He's not your top 5 quarterback, but he's good enough. He can complete passes. He's phenomenal at the boots off it, the rollouts, the play action, right? If you can get Justin Fields to do that, just fucking make some throws. You got a chance, because I'm telling you, the run game is awesome. I mean, it is awesome. It was really cool to watch them literally run fullback ISOs, pull the guard, kick out, run the fullback. I mean, shit that they were running in 1922. They were running for 40 yards and a touchdown.
And you can't turn the ball over, right? If you lose the turnover ratio with these type of teams, you're going to get the break speed off.
That's a major key amongst the league, right? I mean, that's the evening out factor, right? The turnover battle. You could fucking run for this, control the game, but have 3 turnovers and you lose the game, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the one major evening out factor.
So another running back, right? Same division, gets hurt. A top 3 running back that can do everything, right? I mean, Dalvin Cook is special when it comes to what he brings to the table. Hurt his shoulder last year, had a harness on, didn't have a harness on to start this year. Still up in the air whether or not he's going to be playing. But you've got to feel really good about having Alexander Madison waiting in the wings, because he does. I mean, he's as good as some starters in this league.
How good has Minnesota been at always having a 2-headed monster?
Oh.
For the last 10 years, it seems, right? Like, if it's Dalvin, then they have Jerick McKinnon. Was that who it was?
Yeah.
I think they had. I mean, like, they always have had a second back that is the equivalent of a starter on another team. So he goes, and he does just as good of a job. I mean, like, that's the beauty, especially when you rely on the zone scheme, right? Like, you're gonna take your punishment because you're gonna stick to it. You're gonna stay true to it the whole game. You could be down 10, you're still getting carries.
Yeah.
Like, unlike other places that you're down 3 or 7 in the second half and it just becomes a fucking empty fest and throw the ball, right? They've done a phenomenal job. They do a great job of just sticking with what they do and what they do well. And so they always have to have extra guys. San Fran does the same thing, right? Like, they lose their starting back. Wilson goes in. They don't miss a beat, right? So, I mean, they're not going to miss a beat at all.
Did you ever wear a harness?
I never did.
Oh, I was gonna say I don't know how restricting they are. I mean, I can't imagine. I know some guys that I play with as running backs, because it pins your shoulder down, right? You can't go catch a high football.
It keeps you from doing that.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
I know some guys have had it like with some shoulders and stuff. I was a big injection guy.
I mean,
Not sure how long I'm gonna live, but I was a big injection.
Yeah, I mean, your liver, your kidneys, tore it all.
We'll deal with that down the road.
The absolute best. I mean, yeah.
We'll deal with that down the road. Micah Hyde.
Not just Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer too. Yeah.
I mean, they lose a lot of players early. I mean, they fucking played without, I think, 7 starters on the defensive side of the ball yesterday. And we're in it till the end.
Yeah.
They had a chance at the end.
Yeah, they had a
the guy gets out of bounds.
Yeah.
They got a chance, right? Like, there's a legit chance. And that's how good that team is. I mean, Josh Allen, they weren't protecting him to save it. I mean, they were coming with blitzes from everywhere. Miami was pressuring left and right.
It's like backyard football.
They were not protecting at all. I mean, there was always a free guy coming off the edge. There was always a free guy coming up the middle. There was, I think They might be playing with some backup linemen, I think, up front too, and so they're sitting there and they're in the game, and they got a rookie first rounder in the secondary start, and they got 3 new starters in the secondary. They got they're without their starting D tackle. That's how good that Buffalo team is. They got a fucking chance every week, but this hurts.
Yeah, but the way they've done this has been impressive, right? If you look at the blueprint of how they've built this team, it's to be able to have sustainable success if you do lose one guy. But when you lose 2 guys on the back end, the communication that goes on, but then you have Jaquan Johnson, who has been there. This is his 4th year now, right? He's been waiting in the wings. He came out of Miami at an elite program. He was a 6th-round pick. But he's been really, really good, just waiting, biding his time, been on special teams, been engaged, knows what's going on, probably filled in for those guys. And then last year, they drafted Damar Hamlin, another 6th-round pick. So to have 2 6th-round picks, but they're developing a farm system. Why Green Bay is so good, they develop their own, and then they pay their own. Eventually, there's going to come a time when Jordan Poyer can't play anymore. Micah Hyde with a neck injury, who knows how long. I mean, he might be done. I mean, you know better than anybody else about that.
Yeah, I don't know what exactly he has, but to be put on IR, he's got to have something similar to
you talk about neck, right? Like there's some things you can mess with and say, oh, you know what, my knee will heal. Your neck, that's your livelihood, right?
There's so many nerves in that area, right? Like anytime you're dealing with this, or spine, right? There's so many nerves. You could feel completely fine 1 minute, literally just go like this, and then your fucking whole arm goes numb. Like that's some scary shit. And then when you start dealing with that, then you got some fucking real issues. Hence the reason he had to go down for a year. He's probably going to end up having to get some fusion type surgery to come back from it. Who knows if he'll ever be the same player again. He might not be able to move his neck or his head, whatever, turn the same.
Then you call it quits at that point.
Then you call it quits.
Then you call it quits and say, okay, my bank account says this number.
Yeah.
I feel really good about that. Thank you very much to the Bills. Hopefully they win the Super Bowl so he gets a ring this year. But you don't mess with that. But again, impressive to be able to be built internally to say, you know what, we've got 2 guys that we can plug and play there. Yes, they got beat over the top against Miami one time.
But who's not going to get beat over the top against that
They
team,
also
right?
held, Tyreek Hill at bay, unfortunately, because I have him on my fantasy football team, which hurt a little bit. We need to get back, but he's ready to go. He is ready to go Thursday night against Eli Apple.
Yeah, you heard his quote after the game. He's ready to roll.
All right, let's move into our next segment, Between the Lines. This is something that's always interesting to be able to understand what players and coaches are truly saying from our perspective because we've lived it, right? We understand what they're saying indirectly or what they're trying to accomplish indirectly, and if you don't pay close attention to it, you might lose it. Like last week, right? Matt Ryan talked about, I think we will respond. Well, he can remove that I think now. They responded really, really well.
As a player, there's a thing called conduct detrimental to the team. In everybody's contract. So you're programmed as robots not to fucking veer too far off track, right? And so what we are going to do, we'll do that for them.
Yeah.
We'll veer off track and let everybody know exactly what.
Especially for some of these quarterbacks, right? Because the quarterbacks, they're going to give you the same old taglines. I got to be better.
Yep.
I got to do better. It's on me. It's not on them. That's what comes with playing this position. Anybody at this level, they better say that. And then when closed doors happen, they go rip somebody's ass for not doing what they're supposed to do. Now, sometimes you'll see some stuff leak. Sometimes you got to kill a hostage to be able to get after some guys. Yep. Kyler Murray had this to say.
I tell guys all the time, always never. You got to be awake playing with me. I mean, it's no matter what the play is. I got free reign to do whatever, get into whatever. So when you sleep and you don't think you're getting the ball, it's we can't play like that.
Kyler, I mean, he's really saying what he wants anymore. He's gotten his contract, and now he's kind of got some loose lips anymore, and he's letting everybody kind of know that he's the guy in charge right now. And so I don't know. I don't necessarily agree with making backhanded comments to kind of come at your guys, because everybody knows exactly who he's talking about. Everybody knows exactly what he's trying to say. But at the end of the day, you're going to start pissing some people off. when you start saying that and start blaming other guys, because as O-linemen, as receivers, as everybody else on that offense, you're expecting that quarterback with that contract, with that title of franchise quarterback, to take the blame regardless if you are the guy blamed. And he's sitting here calling guys out saying, hey, man, you better be awake whenever I'm at quarterback. You always got to stay alive, which I don't necessarily disagree with.
Yeah, I mean, he had a 26-second play, right? And does any of that play into it of like, man, you changed the trajectory of this game because you were able to do that? Again, different tactic, but some of these younger kids, again, he's got a high level of expectation on him. He's got 230 million reasons why people need to see him succeed each and every week. And when you're sitting there with that record right now, the first place that they point is to that quarterback. The first thing they talk about is, okay, what can this quarterback do better? And again, it's about making those 3 or 4 plays that you can make on an offensive game plan to take advantage of it, right? He just barely outthrows Hollywood Brown by maybe 3 feet. If not, that's a home run and a touchdown. They did a really good job of moving the ball. They need to figure out the red zone offense.
Yeah.
And that starts with running the football. That starts with doing things. When they have shots and plays to hit, Andy Isabella stops on the play, apparently, in his opinion. We saw it on TV that they were mad at each other. Part of that's good to see. I don't know how much I like it leaving that inner circle of the locker room, because now Andy Isabella's sitting there watching film. And if that ball wasn't perfect, when they watch it, it's going to be a whole different story then. Again, you're ironing out some kinks. You're getting things worked out. The margin of error is really small in that NFC West.
Yeah, Arizona definitely, they got to get that figured out, and obviously they will this week. Dan Campbell.
Always a great mainstay.
Him and Mike Tomlin, two of my favorite head coach quotes, right? Because you never mince words. You know what they're fucking saying. Dan Campbell had this to say about his decision to kick instead of go for it.
For me, I freaking regret my decision there at the end. I should have gone for it, 4th down, and told the team that I should have gone for it. So,
listen, I mean, Dan says, I regret my decision. That's like me fucking coming in on Monday and being like, man, I wish I would have fucking taken a better step yesterday. Like,
I wish I wouldn't have thrown it to that guy, because if I had just put it a little bit out there and it was a touchdown as opposed to a pick, man, that would have been awesome.
Easier said than done always. I mean, that was like, that's always kind of been my gripe with anybody that fucking has they got the perfect answer on Monday. In fact, I got into quite a heated battle with one of my offensive line coaches in my career one time. It was a great story. I fucking came in. We're playing Pittsburgh. And while we were getting ready to play Pittsburgh, while we played Pittsburgh, we come in Monday to watch the film. And Pittsburgh's known for I call it the amoeba defense, where everybody's just walking around, right? So they got 8 guys within 6 yards of the line of scrimmage. You don't know where they're going to line up. They just walk around. What always shows, you've seen it a billion times. It always shows right before the snap. So if you pause the fucking film right before the snap, it's a perfect 4-2.
Oh, yeah.
It's a perfect, clean 4-2. And you see me, like, before the snap, I'm sitting there like, hey, you do this, you got him, hey, he's down. We're going to go to him and him. We're good. Fucking O-line coach pauses it right before the snap. He says, what are we doing? Like, what's all the communicating for? It's a clean 4-2, 6 bars.
That didn't sit well with you.
I go. It's week 13. My body feels like shit. I think we weren't very good at the time. I think our record sucked. I go, real fucking easy for you to say while you're sitting in air conditioning with a fucking clicker and a laser pointer out. He closed the book so fast. He had his little playbook out, right? And all his little grade sheets, he closed it. I'm telling you, like, he was fucking like this. He was shaking. He was so mad. And he walked out. And the assistant line coach starts, like, running the plays. We keep watching the film. Like, it just carried on, right? And then the assistant line coach, after, like, 2 plays, was like, you should probably go talk to him. I'm like, yeah, I should probably go talk to him. And
this is later in your career, mind you, right?
This is year 11.
Okay, well, don't say that, but
this is year
now
11.
we know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
But in saying that, right, probably want to wait till you got some tenure under your belt.
Yeah, don't do that as a under 10-year guy.
Hainsey, don't do that.
Yeah, exactly. But to go back to the point, everybody's got the perfect answer on Monday, right? If they would have made that field goal, he's probably feeling pretty good about life. right? Like,
exactly, yeah.
And then he's not saying this comment. So, again, we get it. We get what you have to say, and you probably second guess it after the fact, but everybody's got the perfect answer on Monday.
Well, here's the thing too, right? Analytics has become such a big portion of what we do, how we operate in this league. This isn't Major League Baseball. There's not 1,000
money
bets. Yeah, I mean, yeah. You know, Jonas Smith's not showing up telling you to go for it on fourth down.
Yeah.
There's probably somebody in his ear saying, well,
Play the odds here, and it's 42%, or you can do this, and this is the yellow zone versus the green zone.
Yeah.
no, that shit doesn't work.
No.
Philly doesn't win the Super Bowl on Philly Special because those odds are against them. As a head coach, emotions are not taken into consideration
Sure.
when you're looking at analytics. It's just numbers and justification for being a pussy is what it comes down to.
No doubt.
Dan Campbell is basically saying, if I had to do it over again, I would not have been a pussy. That's all he's saying. I would have put my best foot forward and said, kick that field goal, we make it, and nobody's having this conversation.
Yeah.
If it's fourth down again, because everybody's starting going for it on fourth down, we see more fourth downs than I've ever seen. I mean, each week you're seeing multiple fourth down attempts by teams each and every week.
Yeah.
This has become such a weird dynamic in the league because you're taking possessions away. I think it was the right call. You make that field goal, you go up 6, you kick the ball off, you pin them back. Have confidence in your players to play. There's a fine line sometimes of saying I got confidence in my kicker versus confidence in my offense to go get this first down on fourth down.
Justin Tucker's your kicker. You have great fucking calls.
I'm sitting back in the chair saying,
But as Dan Campbell made that decision, Doug Peterson's down in Jacksonville. The first fourth down of the game, it's 4th and 6. They go for it and get it. Even if you don't get it, his entire team is like, man, he's got confidence in us.
the Cardinals went for it on fourth down on their own 20
Right.
on Sunday. Like, how do you feel good about going? Well, because you have to. Because
Exactly.
you've got to try and jolt some energy into
Yep.
this team.
Yep.
These fourth downs that we're seeing, again, damned if you do, damned if you don't type of
Yeah,
a
for sure.
situation. Making field goals, a 54-yard field goal, has almost become a given too, which is another crazy thing to even think about.
Yep. All right, moving on to one of my favorite teams. Although their record isn't great, it's 1-2. I love what they're doing down there. I love their offensive scheme. I love what they're doing on defense. But we got an interesting quote. Might get pointed out on the Monday meeting. Kyle Pitts of the Atlanta Falcons said this.
Let's just jump right in. What changed today, man?
I don't know. The ball found me. I feel like we've been doing a good job all week just preparing.
Kyle Pitts says, the ball finally found me. In Seattle, hostile environment, gets a ton of catches. I think it was 8 targets. What do we got? 5 catches, 87 yards. And they ran a tight end screen that when he got the fucking ball in his hands, he looked like a man possessed. This guy needs to have the fucking ball. Probably the right quote, the honest quote,
For sure.
but completely calling out the quarterback and the offensive coordinator. Where does that go? How does that go moving forward? Not sure, but he needs to get the ball more. The guy's a fucking animal.
Well, sometimes it's the one word in there that just all of a sudden your ears perk up, right? Like last week with Matt Ryan, I think. This week, finally. The ball finally found me. I mean, when you invest a top 10 pick in a tight end, he better be dynamic.
Top 5 pick, I think, right? 4? I think it's 4 overall.
This kid is that dynamic, as you said on the screen. Having 87 yards for a tight end, again, he's going to be a centerpiece. They're still trying to figure this out, how Marcus Mariota fits into the picture. I think Arthur Smith's done a tremendous job of implementing it, who they're going to be, and they're headed in the right direction.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Kyle Pitts. If they're going to continue to be really good, they've got to find ways, manufacture ways to get the ball in his hands. As we heard from Arthur last week, I don't play fantasy football. I don't care about all you owners. All those Kyle Pitts fantasy football owners, like my brother who was sitting there scratching his head, they were waiting for this to come because now he's just scratching the surface of how good he can be. And he can be an elite mismatch in this league week in, week out. You see what is going on. Do you put a backer on him? Do you put a safety on him? Everybody's going to have some kind of disadvantage where you feel good about it. It's just a matter of them scheming it up. So he finally feels good because, again, you've got a chip on your shoulder. If you're that high of a pick as a tight end, you've got
Give me
to
the fucking ball.
Yeah, give me the ball.
Yeah.
Finally, he got the ball.
He got the ball, and he did great things with it. Should be a centerpiece moving forward. All right, we've been waiting for this day, huh? Joining us now from Charlotte, North Carolina. The first 2 weeks were somber. Didn't get a win. Now we finally get a big win against a big division opponent. Coming off a win against the New Orleans Saints, joining us, Baker Mayfield. Baker, how you doing, man?
Oh, much better than last week.
Yeah.
Happy Victory Monday.
Hey, how was it? How was the atmosphere in Charlotte? Was it awesome?
It was good. Yeah. I mean, weather's been cooling off a little bit, so it was football weather, true football weather. Atmosphere was great. I think just how the defense played really got the crowd going too. So it was a fun atmosphere to be in. Like you said, tough division opponent. So coming out of there with a win and having 3 takeaways is pretty sweet. So we're happy about that. A lot of the things that we emphasized during the week also, came to light. So that we're happy about, the things that we're talking about are actually, not just words, it's actions as well.
You look at Christian McCaffrey, right? To have a healthy, dynamic back like that.
Yeah.
And I think this league has transitioned, right? Everybody's so enamored with, you got to put up points, you got to do all this crazy stuff. You guys haven't started necessarily tremendously fast, right? Like you have the first quarter, you kind of feel your way out. That can change, though. Is there a level of concern with that, or is it like, hey, no, we're trying to establish our run game. We're trying to get the ball in our best player's hand, as opposed, the first couple of weeks where he's not touching the ball as much. You want to get a flow for him. Is that become a concerted effort?
Yeah, we definitely have been making sure that's where we're starting. Is find ways to get the ball in 22's hands and manufacture those touches early just to get him in a rhythm. And we're also just running the ball extremely well right now. So not only just getting him touches, but just sticking to what we're good at right now. And the frustrating part that we haven't started well is we've been absolutely atrocious on third downs. So, and I take a lot of blame for that one, but we just have to be way more detailed and just our pass game, just at the tops of routes, just making a point to stick it, come back to the ball. I got to put the ball in better places, but yeah, right now it's feed 22, and there's nothing wrong with that until teams really do stop it.
Hey, so big win in the division. You're 1-0. You got to feel good about that. Now we get the Arizona Cardinals this week, another 1-2 team. You get to 2-2. Whoever wins this game gets to 2-2. You got to be feeling pretty good about yourself. What extra measures and kind of what approach you guys going to take to practice this week, and just getting ready to come out on all cylinders, like Drew said, and starting fast?
Yeah, last week was by far our best week of practice. Just guys were extremely dialed in on just executing and doing their job. Nothing more, nothing less. Just focus on what you have to do. And so I think carrying over that same mindset, we practiced really hard. And so I think nothing different when it comes to preparation for us. Execute, practice, really, really know our own game plan. And, like I had mentioned to you guys last week, I think we had been overthinking a lot instead of just going to play ball and focusing on what we're supposed to do. So I think that needs to carry over.
You're measured by wins and losses, right, in this league. We talk about it. Everybody knows it. They understand it. And one number that usually determines that is the turnover ratio. And again, we talked about this last week with going against a Saints team against a quarterback that has historically turned the ball over more than anybody, right? Protecting the football is the utmost important. Sometimes people lose sight of that. But being +2 in the turnover battle, essentially +3 because of that pick that didn't matter at the end of the game there.
Yeah.
Is that something that is going to be imperative moving forward for you guys as you try to win football games and, again, create a culture of establishing the run on offense? But when you see your defense playing that way, you've got to mentally probably adjust a little bit as a quarterback.
Absolutely. And to me, it's don't do things to lose the game for us, and that's turnovers are the biggest stat for that. So, obviously you want to eliminate negative plays. You want to take care of the ball, but just even more hyper focused on it because of how our defense is playing. They're going to get stops. And when they do get down to the red zone, they're holding teams to field goals or they're blocking field goals right now too. So it's, just being aware of just where we're at in the flow of the game, just taking care of the ball. And it's, you mentioned the run game, being able to run the ball when teams know you're running the ball. That's not something everybody can do. And right now I think we're able to do that.
leading into this week, listen, I think not many people realize how much better of a feeling it is walking into the football facility Monday after a win versus a loss. Just talk about, first of all, what was the feeling like walking in with the boys? Because I know you guys got a relatively young team, and just kind of how you can manage expectations as to kind of just keep going.
Yeah, I thought, we had our team meeting and reviewed the film earlier. I thought everybody handled it just about as good as we could. Showed some of the highlights of things that guys did well that not everybody notices as everybody does. But the film was, there were some harsh critics in there, and everybody's, and that's what I do love about this team is in our meetings, it's not just the coaches talking. Players are very vocal when the film's on about how, if they took a wrong step or, if my ball location and my footwork's off, stuff like that. So I think it's a very, very accountable group, and nobody was, everybody's happy with the win. Don't get me wrong. It's well known in our locker room that it's hard to win in this league. So don't take that for granted. But there was definitely a lot of criticism in the room today, but no hard feelings. We just have to continue to get better because like the passing game right now is nowhere near where it needs to be. We have to be way better. So that it was definitely a decent meeting to harp on that.
Yeah, but I think from our perspective, right, understanding the game and the game within the game, right? Sometimes people look at that and say they're just out of sync, they're doing all these things. But there's so many responsibilities a quarterback has on his plate. There was 2 instances in the game on Sunday that I thought you did a phenomenal job that to the naked eye, the casual fan, they would have never noticed. I want to talk about one, and I'll let AQ talk about the other one because it's the run game. But as a quarterback, you take pride in being able to change protection, be able to pick up pressures, especially against a team that pressures as well as the New Orleans Saints have. That touchdown pass that you threw to Laviska Shenault. You'll get it one day. Oh, man, I'm sorry. Laviska Shenault. You know what? He keeps making plays like that. I'll damn sure know his name and say it with pride and throw the junior on there as is deserved. So my apologies to Laviska. That will not happen again. It just needs to happen in real time. But in saying that, 2nd and 10, you change the protection to be able to pick up the blitz. You get the ball to him in space. That is something that people don't necessarily understand. On film or on TV, it just looks like a screen. Can you take us through that play?
Yeah, so we got a quick game play out of a 1-by-3 formation, so tight end upside over there. Really a kind of a man zone read for me. But when I get up to the line, just looking at just the displacement of the defense, there you go. Throw a displacement word in there. It's Drew's favorite word when talking about defenses. It just how the safeties are lined up, realizing that my only problem would be Demario Davis. So just line was going right, remiked it, got it back over to him, and they did bring pressure. So we were protected and was reading that play inside out. Laviska was the number 3 receiver on the inside, had just a shoot flat route. And number 2, DJ Moore, had a slant. And so I'm supposed to read it, the slant to the flat, but the way they pressured, it looked from my standpoint, PJ Williams, safety 26, was running out to come over and help. And I thought he was going to take DJ away, but he was actually running to cover Laviska. So he was just wide open, popped for me, gave it to him in space, and he did the rest. Robbie had a good block as soon as he caught that ball and made it easy on me. But yeah, protection point, those are the things that, it's not noticeable to normal people watching the game, but
we're not normal. Don't worry. We're not normal.
HU's definitely not normal. But those are good feelings. Like when you fix the protection, you're picked up, it makes you feel comfortable in there to be able to go down the field. And it's also great when you throw a flat route for a touchdown.
Same thing with the run checks, right? Like whenever you make a run check, how good does that make you feel? And then it fucking hits, right? Like you see something like, we used to use the whole cow terms, like, oh, there's 3 cows over there, we got 3 blockers, we're good, or 4, and there's too much, let's go the other fucking way, right? Like you see
cows?
Yeah, you like that term or no?
No, I probably wouldn't use it.
Yeah, I don't think I'm
perfect. Perfect. That was an old school line coach that did that.
I've been with you a lot of places. I've never heard of cows. Like boo.
Like boo.
Oh my god. Yeah.
That's an old school O-line coach that used to say that. Hey, listen, if there's 3 over there, we got 3 blockers, we're good. If there's 4 over there, we're 3.5 because he's down the middle. We're gonna go the other way.
That's good math, by the way.
Cows though.
Good math, right? Kind of similar to Hugh's math last week. Something, at least my math adds the fuck up.
Don't say cows to Campy. That will confuse Campy. He'll be like, wait.
Oh yeah, we can't do that. No, but I do take pride in the run game stuff. Just making sure we're all on the same page. And I let the center ID that and go from there. But yeah, we had a trick play called, a little double reverse basically. We had condensed splits, and just the way they were pressuring with those reduced splits, they make it look like they're playing cover 2, but the corners are actually firing. So got out of that, and we came back to it the very next play. So that, like I said, taking care of the ball, eliminating negative plays, that would, to me, be one of the better plays that I had yesterday. Just recognition, getting out of it, and just so we can run it again the next play.
I mean, you said on film, on Fox, you could hear you saying, I don't like where that guy's at. Green dose, green dose, green dose. Probably need to change that code word up.
I'll probably change the code word on that one.
We don't need to talk any more about it, because don't give anything else away about any colors or anything like that.
But I didn't realize
Spanish.
I was verbalizing my
And it worked, right? That was a huge check by is it Chuba or Chuba?
Chuba.
There we go. Chuba Hubbard had a great run on that.
Yeah, he did. Broke a couple tackles. I don't even know how he stayed up on that one. But he showed up to the game. He's from Canada. He showed up to the game in a Canadian tuxedo. He meant business yesterday.
Love that move.
Yeah.
Great move.
Well, Alan Quay also stepped his game up. This is not a dry fit that he is wearing. This is a regular cotton T-shirt.
I just didn't recognize him.
Well, he's classing it up. He's about,
Still got Crocs on, don't worry.
Yeah.
Is it
And the Apple Watch.
Oh, yeah. This is for the Navy SEALs. I spent the whole month out in Coronado and really became one with the town. And there's a company out there, former Navy SEAL guy, developed this shirt, I think Drew follows him on Instagram. Good stuff.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah.
It fits you well. You look good.
Yeah, I got to lose weight, man. I put on the same amount of weight that my wife did whenever she was pregnant. It's not good. That's not good. Problem is, she gets it off. I didn't get it off.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Well, now he's become an MMA fighter too, though. He's started training MMA style with Jay Glazer.
Yeah, a couple former UFC guys. Hitting mitts twice a week.
We're not even joking right now. He's hitting mitts twice a week.
Are you serious?
Dead serious.
He's getting to his fighting weight.
Drew, did you tell AQ about my rookie year training camp?
No.
What'd you do?
The Browns had Jay Glazer and MMA people come in and train. Like, we're over there hitting bags.
Quarterbacks too.
And Try looks over there. Try was there and he's like, nah, dog. I ain't doing that. Like, tell me how that's going to make me a better quarterback and I might do it. No. And Try was, Try.
Yeah.
Chuck Liddell did show up. That was pretty cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, that dude's a badass.
Yeah.
And you can tell he's fought for a living. He doesn't move very well anymore.
AQ's not looking to fight. He's just looking to train.
Just looking to train.
Let's clear that up right now.
The minute they start rolling around on the ground doing like jiu-jitsu and all that stuff, I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm out. So fast.
No ground combat for you.
No ground combat. I'm just hitting mitts. That's it. All right, let's wrap this thing up. Baker, we appreciate you so much coming on with us every week. Big win. Keep the thing rolling. Get to 2-2 this week and keep pounding.
There we go.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, guys.
All right, leading into our final segment, the pick six gambling. We had some good ones last week, some pick sixes. I don't think we had any this week. Always an interesting topic because, like, as a quarterback, you don't want to make the tackle. As an O-lineman, you don't want to make the tackle. I actually once played with a lineman who's going to be a Hall of Fame lineman. I don't want to out him. But his effort was piss poor chasing down a pick six one time.
I tore a kid's ACL when I threw an interception. I felt really bad about it. Against Northwestern in the red zone, and I was hot. And I went after this kid. I tore his ACL. I don't remember your name, but if you're out there, you ever see this, I'm sorry.
So lineman I played with, he will be a Hall of Famer. I mean, they said, like I said, his effort was very piss poor. Chasing this thing down, he was getting out of the way. He was fucking dodging. He wasn't chasing it down. The O-line coach, when we walked in, said something like, "Hey, didn't really love your effort on that." interception return for a touchdown. He goes, I don't get fucking paid to chase them down. Tell the quarterback to complete the fucking passes. And it was maybe my all-time favorite moment walking into a film session. But it's neither here nor there because we got some good picks. I actually made some good picks this past week. I think it was 2 for 3 and had a chance. Houston
I know.
goes to Chicago.
I had so
and tricks
many,
it off.
I had so many what ifs, right? If Jimmy G didn't step out of the back of the end zone, then that would have helped me get to 2-1 this week. I'm waiting for a clean sweep.
Me
I feel
too.
like I'm right on the cusp.
I think it's here. I think it's this time.
Yep. Teams are figuring themselves out, and we're figuring them out.
We're figuring them out too. All right, I think we got this one. All right, so Packers are going to play the Patriots this week. The line might continue to fucking climb.
And it will.
Not sure who's going to play quarterback for the Pats, but this Packers team's got it figured out. They got Bakhtiari back. They got Elton Jenkins back. They got maybe a little question mark at center because their center left the game yesterday, but they got Aaron Rodgers, who's fucking awesome. -10.5. I think they smoke the Pats. That's a crazy fucking line to pick, but I think they smoke the Pats. Moving on, we got the Rams and the 49ers. I love this game. It's always a matchup king. I love watching it because both teams do a phenomenal job at game planning.
They know each other.
They know each other, and they're two of the best at game planning. They know who they want to attack and how they want to attack, and these games are always fun to watch. They're always close games. Typically, the 49ers have had the best of them, which is wild to think about in that division, but they got the over-under at 44. I'm taking the over in this game. I think it's going to be somewhere in that 27-24, 30-27. It's going to be a tight game, but I got the over in this one. Atlanta. This is my team. You guys know. If you've been listening, this is my sleeper team.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of this team. I don't think they have the record to show, but they're dangerous, and they're going to get better, and they're climbing. They are playing the Cleveland Browns at home, and they're 2.5-point dogs.
They just got done with a 2-game West Coast trip, and they won one of them, right? You go to LA, you come back from getting absolutely crushed, and you make it, and you covered for you.
Covered for me.
Double digits.
Yep.
They had no business covering. They covered. I would imagine they stayed out there and then just went up to Seattle.
Yep.
Or won a football game. When you can go that far and win, it's huge.
Huge. Come back home, +2.5. Take Atlanta this week.
I like it. I'm gonna go with Thursday Night Football. I know the Cheetah called out Eli Apple, but I think the Bengals are starting to get this thing figured out. I think they really are. I think that they're going to be wearing their white helmets. They are 3-point favorites at home. Being that Thursday night game where you've got to travel there, you've got to figure out some stuff, whether it's to his head, whether it's to his back, whatever it is, the Bengals are going to have an atmosphere that's going to push them over the edge. And I think -3 with their kicker, with everything that they bring to the table, they are starting to find their stride, and they're going to be just fine. That's a team that won't panic based on what's going on ever, whether it's 2 losses, whether it's 2 bad quarters, 3 bad quarters. They're going to find a way to do it. But Mike McDaniels does scare me with his ability. But Mike McDaniels does scare me with how good he has this team believing in what they're trying to accomplish. So you look at that. I still like the Bengals. I'm still taking them. Thursday night, quick turnaround. You get home, you get settled. Vikings, -2.5 in London. Dalvin Cook may or may not.
First international week.
Yeah.
Okay.
Get up nice and early. I'm not going to say across the pond because that got played out. I hated my trip to London. I absolutely despise that thing.
Me too.
And saying that, the Saints might. I mean, Dennis Allen is already fielding questions. Should Jameis start? Do you bring the red rifle in? Do you go with Andy Dalton? Do you do something like that? Mike Thomas is hurt. The defense is good, but they're starting to show some leaks in that run game, right?
Yeah.
You saw that run defense. You saw what Christian McCaffrey did of going over 100 yards on Sunday. I like the Vikings. Everybody was so high on the Vikings, and they fell off a cliff because they got absolutely crushed. And then they're back of saying, okay, the first half of that Lions game, they didn't look inept. They looked like, okay, Kirk Cousins can't play on primetime. He can't do this. None of that stuff matters. They're going to go, and they're going to win by a field goal or more on Sunday.
Okay.
Early. Get up early to watch
Let's
it.
go.
Broncos, Raiders, 2 teams we were both low on, have remained low on.
Yeah.
They're under 45.5. Those are 2 teams that are desperate to find an identity on offense. It scares me taking any single under in the NFL because all of a sudden if Danger Russ decides that he wants to start cooking, we might have some issues. All of a sudden Derek Carr starts actually throwing the ball to Devontae Adams, we might have some issues. At the same time, you look at what they do on defense, and it's impressive. Neither team has run the ball especially well, right? They have in spurts, but not consistently. Josh Jacobs hasn't done it. Devontae Williams, a high draft pick, Melvin Gordon. None of these guys are doing it. Defensively, they can get after the quarterback on both of these teams.
I love that pick, and I'm going to say I 1,000% agree with you. Both defensive-heavy teams, both offensive lines fucking stink.
Yes! I actually don't do research on the offensive line before I make these picks.
They both stink right now. They're both in limbo. They're both trying to figure it out. They're both giving up a ton of pressures, and they both can't run the fucking ball. So, love that pick. Hey, thanks so much for joining us again on another episode of the Bobbled Exchange. We will see you next week, recapping this week and talking about next week. And make sure you get your picks in. Good week. Cheers, brother.
Need some more wine.